Hey folks, in this video we are going to be learning how to collect files from multiple folders within a primary folder and then send all of the files to a destination folder. The scenario for this lesson is a team who is working where each employee is working in their own folder with a set of files, and you want to combine all of the employees' files into one folder every day, every week, every month, every year, whatever it ends up being. This video is part of my Automating Google Drive video series. So we're going to be getting a little bit more sophisticated with things. To give you a sense of where this lesson is going to go, we're going to be crafting a programmatic solution. So we're going to try and cut down on manual data entry, hard coding, as much as we can, which means that we are going to be using some intermediate to advanced methods, specifically relating to while loops, for loops, and in some cases, while loops nested within for loops. So if this is the first video that you're watching in this lesson plan, you might want to go check out the playlist to go catch up on the uh, more entry level videos in this plan. In terms of what you're going to need for this lesson, I would recommend, at least two folders with files in them. The nice thing about this lesson is that it will dynamically expand and contract uh, based upon the folder system. Where you might end up getting into challenges if you nest um, files folders within folders, which is a whole other thing. So if you do have challenges, reach out in the comments section, check out the playlist. I'm trying to approach this from multiple angles. So once you're ready to go, click play and we can begin. So I'm going to be using an unbound app script. So I am going to go up to the left-hand corner, select new, go to more, and select Google App Script. What ends up happening when you have an unbounded script like this is you get a warning that's just saying like, hey, other people can access this. So if they can read and write to your folder, they're going to be able to read right to this and they can execute it. So it's not a problem, but you just want to think about that when you're thinking about how you're setting up your directory. I am going to call this project multiple folders into one. I'm going to clear out the boilerplate just because it's a rhythm thing for me. You don't have to. I'm going to call my function main. It is going to have empty parentheses because we are not passing any input. We are just using the function to compile our code. We're going to have curly brackets. We're going to hit enter, and we are going to begin by identifying the destination folder ID. So in previous videos, we had been hard coding the folder ID within the get folder by ID method. Because of some considerations with this project, we are just going to save the ID. So we're going to declare a variable that is called dest for destination folder ID, and that is going to just be set to, for now, an empty string. So we're going to go back to this folder system here. You can set up as many folders as you want to, but I would recommend having a destination folder wherever that is. For my purposes, I decided to have a parent folder and then individual subfolders within the parent, with one of those subfolders being the destination or quote unquote master folder where I'm going to be collecting all of my files. So I'm going to click into the destination folder. I'm going to go up to the URL and I'm going to grab the ID. I'm going to paste it in there, add a semicolon, hit enter, and move on to the next step in my script. which is identifying the source folders. That's not the right way of putting it. Identifying the source where the folders are. Folders with files are. These comments don't really matter, but they are good to have so that when you come back to it, you can acclimate very quickly. Or if you have collaborators, they'll know what you're doing as well. So we're going to save this to a variable called source folder. And we are going to use driveapp.getFolder by ID. And then we're going to pass in a string. Right now we're going to leave it empty so that we can finish our code. And then we're going to go collect it, copy it, and paste it in between our parentheses. Use .getFolders. We're going to have an open parentheses and add a semicolon. So now we're going to go back to our directory or our parent folder. So the folders that I want to extract files from are in this folder here. It's called Move Files from Multiple Folders to One Folder. So I am going to go into the URL. I'm going to copy that ID, and I am going to paste it in between my parentheses. You can have single quotes or double quotes for your parentheses. It doesn't matter. My recommendation is whatever you pick, just be consistent throughout your script. So you can see I use single quotes on line 3. I'm also using single quotes on line 6. Cool. So next, we are going to create an empty array to push folder ID values. So we're going to hit enter, and we are going to save a square brackets to a variable called array folder. And we're going to have it like that, add a semicolon, and then hit enter. So now we are going to use a while loop to iterate through the source folder variable. So we're going to be using the variable on line 6 called source folder. So the way that Google Drive and AppScript works is when you access an object, like a folder or a spreadsheet, you can call a method such as getFolders, which will then collect each object within the larger object. So if we just did a for loop with this source folder, what we would return is a folder iterable, which is not what we want. We want to isolate the folder IDs so that we can drill down deeper into them. So the method that we need to use is a while loop. So the way that you use while loop is you call your variable in this case, and then you hit dot, and then you can see you have only 3 methods in here. We're going to use hasNext with an empty parentheses. We are going to have curly brackets, and we're going to hit enter. Now what we're going to do is create a variable for folder iterators. So we're going to declare a variable, and I'm going to call it folder, and I'm going to set it to, actually, you know what, I'm going to call it folders, and I'm going to set it to source folder dot next open parentheses. So when we do this, I'm going to do logger.log. I'm going to do it for folders, and I'm probably going to have to give permissions here, but I just want you to see what happens. Okay, cool, sorry. So we're probably going to have to give permissions here, so this is going to take a little bit. What I want you to see happen is that when we call this code, we're going to get the names of each of the folders. So what we need to do is, first of all, review our permissions, choose the correct account, go to advanced, go to multiple folders, and then select allow. Cool. So now you can see for our results, we're getting every single folder in here. The reason that I structured this lesson like this is because um, I wanted to show you how to manage your results. So I wanted to introduce to you a conditional statement in here. And that conditional is going to exclude the destination folder because the whole point of this exercise is we want to have this folder be the place, the master resource, the destination, whatever you call it, where folders are funneled. So you can see in employee 1, we have a drawing file. In employee 2, we have a spreadsheet. And employee 3, employee 3 has 3 different files: a text document, a spreadsheet, and a presentation deck. We want to collect all of those files and send it here. But when we use our while loop on the parent folder, the destination folder's in there. So if we don't exclude the destination folder, then this application is going to try and collect files from that folder, and we don't want that. We want to exclude this folder and then just look at everything else. And the way that we're going to do that is we are going to use this destination folder ID up here in order to say, if the ID of the folder matches this ID up here, do not include it. Do not allow it to progress through the program. And the way that we're going to do that is by using a conditional to exclude the destination folder. So we're going to use an if statement, and then we're going to use that folders variable that we just created. So we're going to say folders and then exclamation point and an equal sign. Exclamation point and equal sign is computer syntax or Google script syntax for does not equal. So if the folders variable does not equal the dest folder ID, then allow it to do this thing that we're going to write here. So what we're going to do is push our folder IDs into the array folder. So now we're going to be using line 9 up here. So as long as the folder ID is not this number up here, then the value from folders is going to be pushed into this array. And the way that we do that is call array folder dot push, and then we're going to reference the folders variable, and we are going to do dot get ID. And that is going to result in our folders being pushed into the folder array. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to have a logger.log so that you can see all of the things that are going into our while loop. And then I'm going to go outside of my while. So you can see the while has an if statement within it. So you should have one curly bracket for the if, and then another curly bracket for the while, and then you're going to hit enter, and you're going to re-enter the larger function. So what I'm going to do is do logger.log array folder. I'm going to hit save, and then we're going to run this so that you can see what we're telling the computer to do. Okay, cool. So let's analyze this output really quick. You can see up here, we are getting destination, employee 3, employee 2, employee 1. And then here, you can see that our code isn't working because we have this 1BR identification number appearing when really we should just be getting 3 IDs because this one should be excluded. So let's go into our code and identify where I made an error. And the first place that I'm going is line 18 because that's where the conditional is. And the issue that I have here is I'm saying if folders does not equal destination folder ID, as we can see in our execution log, this is the result that we're pushing into the if statement. So effectively what is being evaluated is destination, does it equal this? Destination does not equal this, so it can continue to move on. So what we need to do is we need to go to this if statement here and change this to dot get ID, add an open parentheses, and now what will happen is instead of comparing destination against this number, it's going to compare the ID associated with destination against that number. I apologize, that wasn't a mistake that I wanted to make, but honestly, it's good to see that sometimes because debugging is a component of writing code. You want to be able to quickly identify where your breakdowns are occurring. So that's where logging is really good. So now what we can see here is we have the 4 files that exist in our parent folder, and then we only have 3 IDs down here, and we don't see 1BR underscore, which means that our conditional statement is working exactly as we want to. That was a very convoluted section there. So if you do have any errors or issues, I recommend hitting pause at this point so that you can compare your code that you've written against my code. There's a lot going on here. Don't be too hard on yourself if you have some mistakes. If you do have any issues, feel free to reach out in the comments or send me an email, and I'm always happy to work through things with these people. With people. With that out of the way, though, the first aspect of our script has successfully been completed. We have defined our destination where we want to deliver files. We have created a variable where we are accessing every folder within our parent directory. We have looped through each of those folders, and we have set a conditional that allows us to evaluate which one is our destination folder so that we can exclude it. And then we've created an array of values, which are folder IDs, so that we can begin to extract the files from those folders. So that's where we're going to begin. And the way that we are going to begin is by creating an empty array to push folder ID values. Cool. And then because we're getting to the bottom of the screen, I'm just going to hit enter so that you can see a little bit better. Okay, cool. So we are going to declare a variable and call it array files, which is pretty much the exact same thing that we did up here for the folders. So now what we're going to do is use the array folder values to collect the files. So we're basically going to do the exact same thing that we did for the folders, or with the parent folder with the subfolders. So when I say subfolders, I mean these folders here. These 3 are what we're going to be accessing because their identification numbers have been stored in this array folder here. So the way that we are going to do that is use a for loop, and we're going to say for I in array folder. We're going to have an open curly bracket, and then we are going to access the folders. And we're going to declare that as var, and then we are going to, you know what, I'm going to call it subfolders, and I am going to use driveapp.getFolder by ID, and then I'm going to reference array folder, and I'm going to use square bracket and I, and then I'm going to go to the right of my parentheses, and I'm going to say get files. Next thing is we're going to use a while loop to iterate through the subfolders. So we are going to use while, and we're going to say subfolders dot has next We're going to go to the right. We're going to do a curly bracket. We're going to create a variable for the files. So we're going to say var files. I don't think we've used files before. Yep, okay, we're good. Sorry for scrolling up on you. So we're going to declare files as subfolders dot next open parentheses. And now what we're going to be able to do is push the file IDs into the array files var. So we're going to call array files. We're going to hit dot push, and then we're going to use files dot get ID open parentheses semicolon. So now what should happen is we are looping through the file IDs in the array folder variable up here, right? So once we are isolating each individual file, which you've seen in our execution log, right? We're basically going 1, 2, 3, and we are passing them into the get folder by ID. We are then collecting all of the files from each of the folder IDs. Then we're using a while loop to iterate through those files by declaring them as a files variable, and then we are pushing the file IDs into an array files. That way, we have an array of files that we can push into our destination folder. So what we're going to do is I want you to click on the line that says array files.push files.getID open parentheses closing parentheses semicolon. Hit the down arrow once, hit the down arrow twice, hit enter, and now you are back into your function. So what we're going to do is we are going to select logger.log. You don't have to do this. I just want to do it to make sure that I did everything right here. You can also use this if you want to. I'm going to hit run. And what I want to see is a bunch of file IDs in an array. Perfect, right? So you can see here, I have multiple file IDs. If you want to make sure that it is like the correct ones, what you could do is, add a logger.log for array folder. And then this way you can compare the two to make sure that you have different arrays. So you can see basically like these are the 3 folder array IDs, and then these are each of the files that exist within all of those 3 folders. So now that we have that, we are on to the very last step of our program. Now, before we do that, I just want to leave this code up on the screen so that you can pause again. This is a very complicated script. So if you are having challenges or you've run into error messages or anything like that, pause the video here and then compare your code against my code. Cool. So we're going to move into the final step of our application, which is using the array files array in order to move the files into our destination folder. So the way that we're going to do that is by looping through the array files variable and move the files into the destination folder. And we are going to do that by using a for loop. We're going to use I in array files, go to the right, curly brackets, hit enter. We're going to use driveapp.getFiles, get file by ID, and then we're going to use our array files iterator. So that means array files square bracket Whatever your variable is, I'm using I square bracket. Then we're going to use dot move to open parentheses. We're going to use drive app again, and then we're going to say dot get folder by ID. And what we're going to do is we're going to pass in our destination folder ID. So we are going to say dest folder ID. You can also pass it in as a string if you want to, right? You could just copy this up here. I like to set variables and then use them again. That way it makes the code more modular. But that's it. Now our script should work appropriately. So I'm going to save my project file. I'm going to go back into my example just so you can see. Employee 3 still has 3 files in it. Employee 2 still has a file in it. Destination has no files in it. So what we want to see is we're going to run this script, and then 6 files should appear in that destination folder. We have to review permissions again. We're going to sign in. We're going to go to advanced, select this, hit allow, and now our script will hopefully compile without any issues. Cool, so it's successfully completed. Let's go to our destination folder. We have all the files that we had anticipated. I'm sorry if I said 3, it's actually 5. We're gonna go back here and we're gonna check employee 1, nothing's in there. Employee 2, nothing's in there. Employee 3, nothing's in there. So it looks like everything worked exactly as we intended to. Just to summarize, you know, my vantage point was trying to come up with a hypothetical situation that might have an actual application for you or for other people. So, you know, in my experience, it's not usually this clean where you'll have like one folder that has all of the folders in it that you want to move stuff to. It's much more likely that you're going to have a folder in various other places, you know, throughout a Google Drive or whatever. So that's the reason that I constructed this lesson like this. In the event that you do have multiple files that exist in different places throughout your drive, you can come up with like you could skip all this stuff in here, and you could just hard code your file IDs into this array in here. I wanted to come up with a programmatic way to show you how to logically construct an expanding and contracting environment. So maybe this will help you when you think about projects that you want to create. I do plan on creating some follow-up videos that continue to explore using Drive App and, you know, programmatically collecting files and moving them into destination folders and stuff like that. You know, people have been providing great suggestions in the comments, so I encourage you to do so as well. You know, I love hearing from people. So if you are having any challenges or whatever, don't hesitate to reach out. You can use the comment section below, or you can email me. My email is in my About section on my channel page, so I try to respond as quickly as I can. I hope you enjoyed this lesson and it helped you, and I hope you'll check out the rest of my videos.